The Confessions of St. Augustine, a 21st century St. Augustine. But of course that's his ex, what do you expect? Besides, a prophet hath no honor. And besides, this isn't his country, and they are his neighbors. So the next obvious choice, of course, is... But of course, Indian villages in daylight are about as far from the American fantasy of them as you can get. One drive through any suburban slum in the United States would look the same. Only difference is you might see horses, and where the casinos have come in. The homes are an upgraded version of houses or units that now all look the same, but still the same trash, junk, vehicles, a little upgraded, some way upgraded like the newest models, but always the dogs and the children and stuff that never gets thrown away. Because you see, after church I had determined to visit Cameron Ladd, who lives close to the church. He was a Vietnam vet who thought I'd been in his beloved Marine Corps, and I decided that the secret of carrying out the Great Commission is relationships, and he invited me. On the way over, though, as I looked at all this, I wondered how last night's vision, let alone the image of the dance down by the river, could ever be reconciled to all this. But by the time I got to Cameron's place, all illusions, once again, were gone. Cameron was sitting outside when I got there. Like most Indians, I guess he feels more comfortable sitting outside so he won't see all the crap inside his place. Ironic, though, since he's never seen all the crap inside my place. Only difference with my crap is once a month I'd throw it all out and start from scratch again, so depending on what time of the month you catch me, it's better or worse than his crap. Cameron wanted me to see his old army rifle. Vintage Indian Wars, I think, since I'm supposed to know about those things, they all think. Truth is, I don't even remember the rifle I used in the army, nor any of the other firepower I used. I just didn't care. Never did. I just look like I do. Thus, the connection with Cameron, a fellow Marine. But even when I corrected him and told him I was, after a year in the Army Infantry, in Army Special Services, it still doesn't register. With anybody, as a matter of fact. What they hear is Special Forces. Special Services is entertainment. Special Forces is John Wayne, Rambo, etc. All the guys who never even went in the war, let alone the service. Anyway, to get to the point here, I'm sitting there in Cameron's front yard, looking at this rifle, trying to figure what to say. Since I say a lot of stuff I don't really know what I'm talking about, like the millimeter of a gun and all those other specs, if that's the term, I could care less about. Like a computer, the brain can only store just so much, so you throw out the unnecessary. The specs, if it is specs, is unnecessary. To me, anyway, but maybe his life revolves around it. So, anyway, what are the specs here, Cameron? I also say anyway a lot, too, in case I never mentioned. Another cover-up for not knowing what to say or what I'm even talking about. Sort of like when people say sort of a lot. Like I also do. Or like a lot, like in the 60s when everything was prefaced by, so anyway, it's sort of like, and then punctuated by, you know? Because they didn't know what to say either. What? You know, the specifics. Specifications, the necessary info, caliber, etc. Caliber, I think that's the bore, isn't it? Like how big? Not big. Wide? Diameter, that's it. Sharps, 50 caliber, ball and cap breech loader. Because it's sort of like staying one step ahead of revealing my ignorance, like bullets, ball and cap, black powder. All the stuff I hear about but don't really know enough about, other than a bullet is a bullet, and sometime before that, like before the revolution, they used these round lead balls with wadding between the powder and the ball. The lead ball they had to keep in their mouth until they stuffed it down the bore on top of the wadding and the gunpowder with a ramrod. What I didn't know at the time when I used to revel in all this stuff when I was a kid is the fact that these guys had to keep sticking those lead balls in their mouths to get saliva on it, so the lead ball would stick to the wadding, consequently and yet unwittingly building up lead in their system, eventually causing brain damage and a whole list of other related afflictions, all of which led to the inevitable question in my mind, what if this rifle's one of them? And he'd want to show me how it shoots, if it even can shoot, without it taking off half my face? Because eventually it'd lead to his offering me, if it didn't kill him first, all of which I'm playing out in my mind, and how to gracefully get out of it with this image of me intact, so I can still be that witness that God wants me to be. When I realized there really was no place to shoot it anyway, sort of shooting half a dozen women, children, and dogs, and who knows what else, thank God. But just to play it safe, I decided to change the subject to something that would reduce all this to mere talk anyway, like, once when I was working security in Miami, I had to weapons qualify for this plum post. When I went, I hadn't slept in a day and a half, but I just wanted to get it over with, so I just about shot all 4 15-round clips before anybody finished their first, when I realized I'd blown out the entire bullseye without so much as a stray, and that's when I cared. Last shot just about hit the target. True story. True story! I got all the plum posts after that, and even the instructors couldn't believe it. Only explanation I had is the secret to shooting is being relaxed. Blah, blah, blah. So then he starts in on his war stories. Stories of killing from a distance, faceless men at night, who fell out of sight, hoping it was them and not us, but who can chance it when it's your life or theirs? which I couldn't top, and more importantly didn't want to, of course, lest it come down to shooting that rifle again, all the while I'm wondering, why am I really here in the first place when a lot of this is no longer me? When I was 19 and lived with the Sioux, I was whatever the situation expected. If Indians sat around idly for hours doing nothing, that's what I'd do too. Because if God were really calling me to be a missionary to the Indians, then I had to listen. But with Cameron, it was getting to be a strain after 45 minutes. Because here I was trying to figure out how to form a relationship without being too contrived or getting caught up in these macho credentials, all the while asking the Lord if I should say something now or not. Or wait. I mean, you spend how many hours together and you never get to even witness anyway? Or you do say something, but what does it really amount to if you can't follow up? Or you form this friendship so that he can call on you in those moments where you can be a witness. All the while trying not to be like some kind of missionary who's out to collect souls the way an Indian, excuse the expression, collects scalps. Because it's true. Missionaries are often accused of that, and for good reason. But then the alternative is what? In their time? That could be a lifetime. No wonder why it worked for me when I was young. I had a lifetime, and I enjoyed their lifestyle. Then, but I don't now, because I don't have a lifetime now. I mean, what is he really living for? All the same fleeting things we've all lived for? And yet to tell him real life is walking with you, Lord, is really a question of when and how, not if. But I gotta come back here for the next 6 weeks before I even have the right to. Or invite him to church. You know he'll say no, and you can't even blame him in a way. I wouldn't go there either if I weren't working here. But who would reach Cameron? And all right, I'm here and Cameron's there. So what do I do, Lord? So, now that you lived it, Cameron, been there, done it, what's in it for you now? What are you living for now? Don't know. Watch my grandkids grow up, I guess. Then what? Watch their kids grow up. Then what? Watch their kids grow up. See, Lord, what do I say to that? Then what? One more then what, and I'm liable to blow the whole thing. Think. What, Lord, what? Then what? Die. Then what? Ain't no more. That's it. That's it? Uh-huh. So do I challenge that, Lord, or let it lie, or come at him with another question from a different angle? Well, Lord, I don't know where I'm going with this. What if? Yeah, what if? What if what? God help me here. What if I had lived a life of total depravity, selfishness, and had been guilty of the death of millions of people? Like Hitler? Yeah, like if he served no other purpose, it was at least to serve as the perfect example for discussions like this. Yeah, like Hitler. And then you had someone like, let's say, Jesus, who never did anything but good his entire life and was murdered unjustly. Anyway, if both ended up the same way, dead, did their different lives make any difference? Well, maybe to other people. Yeah, but those people would end up the same way too, dead. Yeah, but at least they'd live longer. What's longer when eternity is the reality? Well, the quality of their life. You think Hitler lost any sleep over what he did? Well, Jesus rose from the dead anyway. And if he did, why can't we? If he did. You believe he did? I don't know. Well, either he did or he didn't, and if he didn't, it's the biggest hoax perpetrated on mankind. Or it's true. And if it's true, then what it's saying, he's saying, the Bible's saying is, we all can. If it's true, I don't know. Well, Jesus was the biggest hoax in all of history if it wasn't. Because he said, I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth on me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. Either it's true or he was a lunatic or a liar. You really think he was a lunatic or a liar? Really? No, I don't. But I wonder about the people that recorded it. Yeah, except they were all martyred for saying that. Why lie under penalty of death? Maybe someone else wrote it and made all that up. Well, the fact is they were all persecuted, and for centuries too. Even secular history verifies that. In fact, they were persecuted right up to Constantine in the 4th century, when all scripture by then had long been written. I don't know. But I didn't say anything after that because I realized you can say too much, and especially when you're a white man. All you're doing in their minds is forcing it down their throats again, like every other white man throughout the centuries. And as much as they may go along outwardly, their heart's not in it, and you have what you have today. So I just took a back seat in the conversation after that and listened and responded to him, since God changes the heart, not man. All I can do is be the instrument. So, of course, he goes back to talking about fighting again, but this time I wasn't sure how to answer anymore because the reality is he didn't get turned on by anything but fighting. It wasn't even an Indian thing so much anymore. I mean, I like to fight, but only sparring where no one gets hurt. You know, where you just find out who's the better fighter. To me, it was simply a sport, like any other, and I was always good at it. In fact, the first time around with the Sioux, I used to take on Ambrose Little Ghost, their undisputed martial arts expert, and I used to take him down every time. Of course, I only did it about 3 or 4 times, enough to convince him and not jeopardize my new status. But that was then. 40 years ago, and maybe he just had a bad day, who knows? Or maybe it was because of my boyhood interest, paralleling my love of Indians, since fighting was an Indian thing. Because while everyone else was playing baseball or basketball, I was fighting. Karate, judo, jiu-jitsu, against pretend knives, guns, clubs, and whatever else the bad guys could come up with, and maybe that's why God stuck me there with all those inner-city kids back there in East LA for all those years. But now it's just violent ranchers who are out of control. And special ranchers who need special attention, or bodyguarding's more like it, if you know what I mean. You know, the kind of kids whose parents will sue the ranch, stop donating enough money to pay the entire staff. Or in one case, they even stuck me with some kid whose old man's supposed to be one of the New York Gambinos because they figured if anybody could protect him, I could. And why am I even thinking like this? I'm thinking when I should be connecting with Cameron here, because the truth is the only thing that's going to impress him is to talk about this, my fighting, and I'm not sure you want that, and I'm not sure any more witnessing is what you want at the moment either, Lord. So I figured I'd just listen.
Constructed in the rear. This one actually had cots complete.
But all I'm hearing now is blah, 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 no matter how hard I try. Because it's at this point I always wonder if maybe art really is my calling, because this is when I always drift back to visual images of the past and what I'd like to paint, and is there anything here? As I start to look around without trying to look bored or uninterested. But nothing really. Not paint anyway. Draw, sure, I draw anything and everything. But that's just a diversion. But paint? No. Zip. Zero. A big black hole in the middle of low-income suburbia is what it looks like. Not even the character of the old reservations, where at least they had character and were separated more. Like some cabins might be tucked into a grove of cottonwood off by themselves, or the ones further out, where they still had that look and feel of the past. Like instead of a cabin, it could have been a teepee. But this is just East LA, or South Miami, or any other low-rent district in the Sun Belt, and that's when Cameron's wife came out and said he had to go to work at the casino. And that's when I knew the Old West was dead. And Cameron's glorious past, if there ever really was one, of Apaches and Cochise and Geronimo and Victoria and all my childhood heroes, would only live on in our minds and in the history books, Hollywood and paintings, but not mine. No, not anymore, Cameron, because all this is just a metaphor that we all get hung up on, being an Indian, an Apache, or a Sioux, or anybody else on the face of the earth, because underneath it all, Cameron and all the rest of us who were trapped in our all too immediate cultural trappings, never seeing beyond what it all might stand for, that higher level that will only be seen completely after all this is gone. The only thing that will have mattered is, do I really know the God I am now facing or not? The God of the entire universe! Not just the God of the Apache or the white man or any other race, nation, culture on the face of the earth, but the God of the universe alone. So with this in mind, I went back to the drawing board. Or more literally my knees, or I'd have to pray about it all, because at this point, I didn't have a clue what to do. To be continued. The Confessions of St. Augustine. Now available on Amazon.com.